Welcome to my podcast this evening. This is the 40-Day Empower Potential Challenge podcast, and I have the lovely Laura Roberts with me tonight. And I just have to say, we did not plan to be wearing the same color. We just knew. So here we are, matching tonight. I love it. I met Laura. Actually, we haven't really known each other that long yet. We met in the spring at a yoga retreat, and Laura was the food lady. She made such delicious food. Are you a caterer?
No, actually, it's just something I love to do.
Okay, wow. You should be, because we got fed so well at this yoga retreat. You had all your gluten-free specialty stuff and you made vegan stuff. It was amazing. I just felt so loved and cared for, because normally when I go and eat at places, I can't always eat the things that are there, but I could the whole time. It was so beautiful and I just loved it, and it was so delicious and scrumptious, and I felt so loved. So, and I mean, it wasn't all for me, but it just was so wonderful. You did such a lovely job. You should consider being a caterer. I'm telling you, you're so good at it.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, do you want to just tell us just quickly a little bit about yourself, and then we're going to dive into what you did for your 40-day challenge?
Sure. My name is Laura Roberts. I have 4 kids, and we live in Cardston. And we just moved here a year and a half ago. We were living up in Cochrane, and so this was kind of a big move for us.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, so we live down here now, and up till now have homeschooled my 4 kids and have loved that journey. I did my Bachelor of Education in school, and so I was really excited to flex those teaching muscles and away
Nice.
So yeah,
That's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
Love it. I didn't know that about you.
There you go.
That's awesome. I'm glad I asked. So great. Okay, so you were going to tell us about your 40-day challenge. I think you've done a couple 40-day challenges.
This was my first one with you officially.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So, but what you did, I thought, was so intriguing. I loved it. And so I'm like, I have to interview Laura so she can tell us about this, so we can, I want to learn about this. So why don't you tell us what you did, what your focuses were for your 40-day challenge?
Sure. So I started out thinking that I really wanted to focus on walking daily for at least 30 minutes, but I chose 40 because I was like, it matches with the 40-day challenge.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to walk 40 minutes a day. And something else I wanted to do was to meditate 10 minutes a day. And I was finding that I could get my walk in okay, but I was struggling with the consistency of getting my meditation in. And then I remembered that the definition, essentially at its core of a meditation is a focus, or, focusing your attention on a single point of focus or something like that. So I thought, I can do that while I walk. And, and you've talked about habit stacking on your podcast before. And it was something that I, was aware of with other habits that I've tried to incorporate into my life. And so I thought, why not? Like, let's do a walking and meditation at the same time. And so I decided that instead of, when I'm on my walk, I like to either bring my kids along, or I'll be listening to my, my podcast or my book or music. And I thought that I would just turn that off and make my walks more of a meditation, where I could focus my energy on one thing for my walk and do them both at the same time.
Okay. So I just got to know, what was it like for you? Were you trying to clear your mind as you're walking, or were you just trying to be totally present and take everything in? Or did that change?
It kind of changed from walk to walk. So sometimes I would just focus on being present with what was around me. So I would be like, okay, I can feel, the wind on my face. I can feel the sunlight on my skin, and just kind of focus on being present and aware of where I was. Sometimes my thoughts were just racing, and I knew I needed to be a little more focused. And so would focus on either my breath or my steps, like the rhythm of my steps, and just keep returning my mind to those things about my body and or what was happening in my body, with either my steps or my breath, or and And then occasionally I would focus on like a word or an intention, a mantra of some kind that would, I'd love to like kind of match that to my steps, or the rhythm of the way I was
Oh,
walking,
that's cool.
my
So,
thoughts.
so can you think of an example of that, like when you did that?
So there was one day where I was like, I really need to feel, I wanted to focus on bringing more peace into my life. Things were a little turbulent. And so I was like, okay, I need to um, set this intention and I want to radiate love. And so it was like, it was this kind of corny rhythm in my head of like peace and love, peace and love, peace and love. And so I was walking with the rhythm of like
Mm-hmm.
saying these words and just kind of, um, I don't know, just really like feeling just the rhythm of them, I guess, in deep in my bones and kind of
That's cool.
in that way. Yeah.
That's really cool. I like that a lot. So cool. Okay, so tell me did you have some awarenesses that came as you were intentional and present? There some things that came, some clarity that came through this 40 days of walking and the meditation?
Yes. I often struggle with like hurrying and um I have kind of like ADHD tendencies that like
Mm,
um that really get me into like fight or flight a lot, right? Like that's kind of like where I feel most comfortable because it's where I've lived a lot of my life is in this like intense like state of like either hyper focus or like
mm,
ease um and I was facing some big decisions that I was like, I can't be in a state of mind like that and hear the still small voice very easily.
mm,
And so I was trying to think of things that would help bring me into, that state of stillness and of peace so that I could really hear that voice of like intuition, the still small voice, the voice of the spirit whispering to my heart what was right for me in this stage of my life, in this decision, in this, experience. And I, um, and I just realized as I was being intentional about walking and focusing that my stress hormones, my like intensity, those things that were overwhelming my ability to hear the still small voice were calmed and were brought down, and I was able to kind of leave that space in my heart and mind to be able to hear what the Lord wanted for me, and it was just a game changer as far as being able to know what the next right thing was, what the next steps were,
mm.
and um, and it really made a difference getting, because I tend, when I'm stressed out, I tend to like really intellectualize things, right? Like I just tend to be like spinning around in my thoughts, like, okay, I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out up here, and
Mm-hmm.
have a harder time settling into just my physical wisdom and into like my heart space where I can just sense what the next right thing is. And so, yeah, it was game changing in that sense that I was able to kind of get into that space more regularly, and that became the norm. And it affected so many other things in my life. Like it affected my focus, my attention in like other areas of my life. It
Mm.
affected my stress levels. It affected my eating. Like my emotional
Wow,
went down. Yeah, it was crazy. It was
that's awesome.
yeah. So anytime I wanted to like numb, so whether it was like with eating,
Mm-hmm.
or with doom scrolling on social media or whatever it is, it like I didn't feel the kind of hunger to fill those spaces with stuff that I did before. Yeah, taking the time to calm myself and be still.
Wow. I love that all so much. Just the awarenesses that you had and the space that you created doing that, doing the walk, the intentional walking, and then what it created for you in other areas of your life. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. Okay. So you also did. Oh, I have another. I have another question for you. I have questions written down here, but we're just like flowing here. So I just got to make sure I'm not missing anything. So I have a question for you. Have you practiced more traditional meditation styles? So like sitting, being still, and how would you compare these?
Good question. I have done meditation before and found it's helped a lot. Um, but I'm naturally a mover. Like I like being, um, I like just like physically practicing things. Like even as a learner,
Mm-hmm.
some people like learn through like hearing and some people learn through, music or whatever it is. I'm
Mm-hmm.
very much a doer. Like I want to be able to like do it myself to learn how to do something. And so, or I need to like physically take notes. And so knowing that about myself, I just struggled always to take the time to actually like sit still.
Hmm.
And to me, I was like, oh, I need to take the time to sit still. But it was also a little bit guilt ridden and
Hmm.
that I couldn't, or that it was really hard for me. And
Hmm.
I, so it was kind of always something that was just, it always added like an extra layer of struggle to stop what I was doing and sit, or to like just stop moving. And so what I found between like while walking meditation and like the more traditional styles was that it was just a lower port of entry, I guess, like a lower bar. The bar was lower as far as like what it would take for me to do it. I enjoyed walking, and I was going to be like doing that anyways as a goal I was working on. So
Right.
being able to do that made it easier to do, for one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had found that using the rhythm of my walking to kind of cement things more into myself was useful as well. Like I was explaining before, like with the rhythm of my steps and whatnot, I did find that there was a depth in sitting still that was kind of special that I maybe didn't find quite as much with walking.
Hmm.
Um, and because I was out in public with walking, I couldn't like sometimes I couldn't cry it out as easily, when you like come
Right.
into something that you really need to
Right.
let the tears flow with.
Mm-hmm.
That that was a little bit different, but I found because it was easier to do while I was walking, I was receiving more benefits from it, and there wasn't as much guilt. And so
Hmm.
it was just more beneficial overall because I was able to do it more frequently and more often. And in that case, it's kind of its own reward where you realize, oh, this actually helps me so much. And realizing that made taking time for more traditional meditation actually easier too, because I knew how much it had helped to do it on a regular basis. So then it was easier to take the stillness of sitting and or lying down and really getting physically still as well.
Hmm.
It was a good stepping stone, I guess, to both
Yeah.
both of
Yeah, stepping stone. I like that. You mentioned you struggle with ADHD. And so it sounds to me like it's a place that you could get to sitting or laying down.
them.
But like you said, you lowered the bar. So you made it easier for yourself. We just talked about this in my last podcast with the person I interviewed, and he was talking about making things easier for yourself. Like the easier you make things for yourself, the more success you're going to have, rather than making things really challenging and then you aren't reaching those goals. And then, there's guilt and there's all this other things and feeling like you're failure and shame and blah, 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 all that stuff, right?
Right.
So making it attainable for yourself, and then you get good at it and you feel the benefits of it, and then and you start to feel strengthened in it, and then it can take you, like you said, to the next level where you're like, okay, I feel like I've been practicing this, and I feel like now that I've had this practice, I can probably sit still for maybe 5 minutes,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, and then just work your way up. Not that that's like the ultimate way to meditate, but
Right.
just baby steps, or like, steps. I love it. The other thing too that I thought of while you were sharing this,
Mhm.
I just took an EMDR course. So EMDR is Eye movement, desensitization, reprocessing. I think that's what that all stands for.
Okay.
So there's a part of it that we learned about, and it's called bilateral stimulation.
Yes.
So it's basically when you are using both sides of the body or tapping both sides of the body, and it helps to stimulate both sides of the brain, and then bring you kind of out of fight or flight, and then down into that relaxed state. So I just thought, when you are wound up like that, or like an ADHD and you can't focus, it just sounds like a beautiful entry level meditation to be moving and to be doing that bilateral stimulation, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
bring that stress level down, be stimulating both sides of the brain, and then it just opens you up to being able, like you said, to feel the whisperings of the spirit, to feel that peace, that clarity, and it opens that up. So that I just think that's amazing. Like you're doing bilateral stimulation right there with your walking, and that's helping you to come to a place of rest, and then therefore inviting in the spirit and that peace and clarity that can come with it. So cool. Very cool. So you did another part of the challenge. You did
Mhm.
two parts, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so the second part, tell us about the second part that you did.
So I tried to daily record or note when or seeing the hand of the Lord in my life
Okay.
on a daily basis. And this one was inspired by you. When you shared some of your goals or what you were working on, I was like, oh yes, I need that. Like
Mm,
I need to be paying attention to those things. So,
mm-hmm. Cool. So can you share with me or with us listeners, what are some of the things that you noticed, like the ways that you saw God's hand in your life?
so some of the things that I noticed were kind of, your basic. I woke up today, I have air to breathe. I have a roof over my head. I have healthy kids, like just those kinds of things that are like the go-to things to be grateful for and noticing
Mm-hmm.
in your life, things that are good. But what was interesting were the days I, um, when I realized that I was doing it all along, like the whole day, because I was thinking like I'm gonna have to record this later. So, the subconscious
Mm-hmm.
awareness would
Mm-hmm.
kind of like flow and infiltrate my thoughts, where I would be like cutting up an apple and the light would just shine through the window and I'd be like, wow, that's so beautiful. I can see the hand of the Lord. Like in this beautiful moment that I have where this sun is just illuminating this delicious apple. And then even in tough stuff, the daily grind or even big things that were happening and going through, like it was just so interesting to see how the practice of reflecting on what the Lord had shown me, how the Lord had shown me his love and his work throughout the day, just primed me to be able to see through that lens in a hard situation and be like, oh no, this is hard, but I know he's there. Like I know he's with me, um, and to be able to spot when, like even in say like an argument with somebody, and um, to note that, oh, because even like, okay, one of the days I was like, I've been noticing a lot of benefits from doing my walking meditation. I'm feeling calmer. I'm feeling more peace.
Mm-hmm.
And because of this, I am noticing that I can like keep myself calm. Like I can regulate my emotions so much better in this really tense situation.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, I actually was like, I'm grateful. I noticed that the Lord is using Andrea to do good in people's lives and to improve, because I felt it that day. That was one of the things that I noticed. I was like, oh, I noticed the Lord using Andrea to do his work. And so it was just a cool little testimony builder of how the Lord uses just little things and people, and he could use me and he can use you. And it was
It's true. Yeah.
just a neat little reminder watching for
Mm,
those little gifts that he gives every day, and that things are moving forward, even, I don't know, even when things are hard.
right. Yeah. I so I did the same exact same thing, or sorry, seeing God's hand in my life, and one of the things, there are actually a lot of things that happened and that I noticed. One experience that really stood out to me was a couple Sundays ago. I'm the conductor for the music in church, and we were singing the third verse of How Firm a Foundation. And I'm standing up there in front of everybody conducting the music, and as I'm singing the words, it was like every single word was God speaking directly to me. It was like a message to me. And I'm standing up there crying in front of everybody because I feel like this verse is God speaking directly to me. And it was just like Him cheering me on, and I'm here and I'm taking care of you and everything's going to be okay. And it was so beautiful. And that was just one of, the experiences that I had in that 40 days. And yeah, just being intentional about opening yourself up to see what is around us, it's transformative. What you start to notice that's been there the whole time,
Mm-hmm.
right? But when
Right.
you start paying attention, you're like, oh wow. It's like putting glasses on and like seeing all these things that you were missing before, right? Like
Yeah.
you're half blind or half deaf or whatever, and now you've got glasses, and now you can see clearly. And you're like, whoa, this is like amazing! Like he's everywhere.
Yeah, for real. You know how there's like so much science behind gratitude changes your brain? Like,
Yeah.
I just thought it was such a practical way to apply that while like knowing and recognizing who to thank for like these things you're grateful for. Like we
Mm.
have, gratitude. We're like, we're grateful for this, we're grateful for this, we're grateful for this. But it was nice to be able to be like, I'm grateful to the Lord for these things He's doing in my life. Like it was, I don't know, it was a nice little reminder who to be thankful for. And yeah, it does. It changes your brain, changes your like outlook on
Hmm.
things.
Yeah, there's this scripture. My husband just shared it with me. Oh man, what is it? It's Romans 8. Hold on just a second. Anyways, I think it's Romans 8. I don't remember what verse, but it talks about the actual wording is transform your mind. And then what happens as you transform your mind? And so my husband shared this with me, and he's like, this is what we need to work on. This is what we need to focus on. This is what God wants us to do. We have to transform our minds. And just that word, like, it's so beautiful. So shifting from how the old patterns of how we look at things, where we go to like, triggers, or we get stressed when this happens, or, this happens and we go straight to resentment and right, all those things, or this happens and then we're like so angry, right? But it's like, okay, these are our old habits and it's time to change those. We're going to transform and starting to break those patterns and change our brain. And I think gratitude is a pathway to that, the beginning of transforming our minds. And then what can occur as we make that a practice to transform our lives and transform our minds.
Yes. I
I
love
think it's,
that.
yeah, going to be so cool to see as we kind of continue to pick things that we want to work on, little areas, and just keep shifting, keep moving, keep progressing, and what's possible, what can happen, where can we, see ourselves going, and the progress. I mean, I'm excited just to see what's possible, right?
Uh-huh. Absolutely.
Okay, so let's see. I think, a couple other questions for you. So here's a question. So one of the focuses of these 40-day challenges is for us to become the people that Daniel, the prophet, and Isaiah, the prophet, saw in vision of the future. So us in these days and what they were doing, God's people, what they were doing. And Daniel says that God's people they knew their God and they were strong and they were doing exploits. And Isaiah says that God's people were blossoming and budding. So,
Mm.
my question to you is, how do you feel like you are becoming one of those people?
Um, so while I'm focusing on through this 40 days, I'm focusing on hearing the voice of the Lord and getting quiet and listening to that like intuitive wisdom that like my spirit communing with the spirit, like that experience um, brought me some interesting answers and they were surprising to me.
Hmm.
And what that taught me, I thought that I knew what to expect from the Lord. And, to a large extent, that's true. But what it taught me was that it's so important to know how to hear Him, like we've been reminded to learn how. Um, because sometimes the answers and the direction that we receive from the Lord will be surprising to us, not
Hmm.
because He's changing, but because we are getting to know Him better and we're understanding His work better and understanding His plan better. And that it should be a little surprising as we draw a little closer to Him, because even if it is something as surprising as like one of the things was like, wow, you actually love me a lot. Like, and, I, and it was,
Hmm.
and it was something that I was like, I always knew God loved me,
Uh-huh.
but in this direction, this answer that He's given me, like He loves me more than I ever thought He
Wow.
had before. And so it was just the reminder that being surprised is kind of in like little ways as we refine our understanding of Him and our knowledge of Him, knowing Him better.
Hmm.
Um, will take us to places that might be surprising too. And that's why I think as the world continues as it does and as it will, it is so important, as the prophets reminded us, to be able to recognize when it's the Lord speaking to us, when we're hearing the voice of God, because it might be surprising where and what we're asked to do. And so as we get to know Him, and as I have, just applying it to me specifically because that's what the question is about. But like,
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
um, for me, it meant that I have way more confidence in Him um, than I did before, and I thought I was rock solid before. And as I think that that's just par for the course when we're striving to draw ourselves closer to Him and get to know Him better. Um, that we will blossom and bud in new ways because He can unlock parts of our potential that we couldn't do on our own, unlock parts of our understanding line upon line to be able to become and blossom into someone who is continually getting better at being able to be a tool in His hands and be used to bring the work or do the work. And we are the work. So, as we refine our hearts too and become
Right.
more like Him, I think I don't know, that's part of the whole deal too. So it's just beautiful. I think yeah, that maybe is what Daniel saw, that, or probably is what Daniel saw, is just that like refining of understanding as we put our
Hmm.
trust in Him and just kind of like take those things that are like, are you really sure? Are you sure that's what you
Hmm.
want to do? Are you sure that's what you want
Hmm.
to do? And act on it in faith and realize that, yeah, He's got us every step of the way. So,
I'm so happy for you. I'm excited. So excited for the things that you're experiencing. And like you said, that having a greater confidence in yourself, a greater confidence in God, and knowing how much He loves you, I think is incredible. And I wish that more people in the world understood that and knew where they came from and know who they are, because I think it would make such a massive shift in their lives to know that information. It's incredible. So I'm just really happy for you that you have experienced that, and I'm cheering you on as you go forward and hope that you just continue to have incredible things happen and feel that closeness with God and become more confident in recognizing his voice in your life, because I think that's going to be a very important tool that we need to have in the future. So I'm excited for you and just really happy. So, and I'm very appreciative of you sharing your time with me and with us tonight to share your experiences. And do you have anything else that you'd like to share in closing?
I don't think so. I think we've covered it, but I'm just grateful that, you had the inspiration to challenge all of us to do this kind of thing. And it's been, timely in a lot of ways. And I think that's kind of the point of it all is that,
Mm-hmm. It is timely.
yeah.
We're just going to keep going and keep blossoming and budding. Here we go.
Yeah. So thank you for the challenge and for having me on it. So
Awesome. Thank you very much.